Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads, and if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show, and if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind-A-Dynamite. It's John Pollock here alongside Wai Ting. Hi, Wai.
Hi, John. I would ask how you're doing, but I know
I spoiled it.
I know the answer will not be good. Care to update people who might not have heard our Wrestle Kingdom review how exactly your day has been? I
was feeling sick this morning for our Wrestle Kingdom review. I feel sicker now.
Ooh. Okay, but you have taken a test.
I did take a test. I was negative this morning, so that's a good sign.
Okay.
I'm out of rapid tests, so I would have to acquire another one before I have to get checked again. But this is where we're at. I got a tea. My throat's a little it's bothersome. I'm a bit tired. I will say, when I sat down to watch Dynamite, I was so tired, dude. And then by about 10 minutes into that title match, I was pretty wide awake. That match woke me up significantly. I don't know if there was any other match that was going to pull me out because, dude, I was like nodding as the show was starting. I was just, I cannot believe I'm going to sit down for 2 hours here. I'm so tired.
I mean, great wrestling can change a whole lot, I suppose.
This is throwing a monkey wrench into my whole 5 a.m. plan because I've been up since 5 and I forgot about the fact that, oh yeah, it's
I think it's a terrible plan.
It's not a great plan. It was a great plan at 6 a.m. I was getting so much work done, but there's no intermission there. It's like I've been up since 5 a.m. and it is now 10 p.m.
Yeah, so people who haven't been listening to our Wrestle Kingdom reviews on Patreon, I mean, John he's been struggling to try to find the right balance between waking up early enough to watch these Japanese time zone shows while also managing a 1-year-old who loves to wake up at random times in the evening. And so John's solution was to wake up at 5 a.m. Right?
But in fairness, I went to sleep last night because I was already feeling sick. I went to sleep at like before 10 o'clock. So it's not like I went to sleep late. I usually go to bed around like 1. So I got a good 7.5 hours of sleep.
Right. But as a result, you woke up at 5 a.m. today, and tonight you have to do a podcast until midnight at least. So that's quite the many hours. And I, because of the nature of these podcasts that we do right after these nightly shows 3 times a week, I don't know how your 5 a.m. wake up's gonna work out.
Well, you know what, Wai, I'm doing this for the gentleman that took time out during our Christmas vacation to email me to explain how unprofessional it was that we didn't get substitutes for Rewind to Raw.
Oh, okay, awesome.
I replied to this guy and just let it rip, dude. I was so infuriated by this. Went into my junk mail first of all, and I checked it. I was mad that I had checked my junk mail and found this, and I was a lot of times
because it's a junk thought.
Oh, I was just it was like 3 paragraphs worth.
I would expect that level of outrage for a Dynamite viewer, but I didn't even know people still cared to that level for our Raw reviews.
Yeah,
but okay.
He said if I want to keep up with the best in the industry, I shouldn't be slacking.
Are you kidding me, dude?
Oh yeah. It was like the gall of it.
Can you pull this up? No, you know what? Let's be positive. I don't want to give air to this.
My response was really good though. I really it wasn't like I thought I was very I don't think I came off. I definitely came off like an asshole coming back.
Hey, everybody,
a justified one.
Well, that fan's going to be ecstatic because we're going to take 2 weeks off after this.
Well, I encouraged him to never listen to us ever again. That was my request. So
he's going to listen. He's going to listen.
He never responded.
He's definitely going to listen to this. He's going to listen every week.
Of course, he probably loves us. He probably listens to every last show of ours. So, if you're listening, I wish you would delete this and go listen to another show. But this is what we're here for, Wai. Second show
Bottom
of the day.
Of the barrel in the industry. I mean, whatever. Maybe we'll even cut this off short. Maybe we'll just,
Maybe. What's coming up this week, Wai, on the site?
Well, as I mentioned, we devoted much of John's lack of sleep to watching and reviewing the past 2 nights of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom. Those are post shows that are exclusive on the Post Wrestling Cafe. 2 of 3 bonus post shows that are out this week, covering the first 2 nights of Wrestle Kingdom. So you can get all of our thoughts quickly. John, what did you think of both nights? If you want to sum it up in 2 sentences, 1 sentence per night.
Excellent main events on both nights. Shibata was an all-time memorable return.
2 sentences, sure. Yeah.
How about this one? Added on sentence. I really enjoyed Tanahashi and Kenta, and Wai really did not enjoy Tanahashi versus Kenta.
That's a great second sentence. Yeah, it was very interesting hearing our thoughts.
Wai and I had the most Canadian argument on today's show, where it was like, even when we it was funny because in Karen's report, she noted for Kenta and Hiroshi Tanahashi, highly recommended. And I replied to her, I said, "Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed the match. So did I." And she responded and said, "Well, it wasn't really my cup of tea."
Okay.
I was like, well, this is my cup of tea, and that match was. So I really don't know what the response is. It seems that I'm probably
I think you're in the majority
that enjoyed this. Am I in the majority?
I feel like it. I mean, I definitely wanted to do some Googling afterwards about people's opinions on that particular match because we were so divided. And because
I've seen nothing, so I don't know what the large sentiment is of the match.
I get the sense people enjoyed it. I mean, I get the sense people were critical maybe of the first half, but they loved the second. I hated the whole thing. John liked it, so if you watch it, let us know, and maybe listen to that particular conversation. So that's out right now on the Post Wrestling Cafe. We've got, of course, Up Next, who did a review of New Year's Evil, a big show from NXT last night. So I encourage everybody to check that out.
If we have time, we'll share some thoughts on the Daily Show tomorrow.
Sure, yeah. And on that note, the Daily Shows return tomorrow, 1:00 on YouTube.com/postwrestling. And all the Patreon patrons will get that in audio form right afterwards. And then Friday, our best of 2021 show with me, John, and the BDE talking about our favorite things of the past year. You might even see some appearances from some of the people we'll talk about on this particular show. We've got the return of Rewind-A SmackDown. Professionals we are, bringing the show back for 1 week only. And then we'll be talking about Rampage, and then me and Kate will be talking about Battle of the Belts on Saturday. Tentatively, we're going to have WH and Mike cover.
That is the team. Yes, it's going to be WH Park and Mike Murray doing the Noah versus New Japan card. So I will not be on that show, but the two of them will have a review up sometime Saturday afternoon, early evening,
and that'll be the 3rd Patreon bonus show that we'll have up in the Pro Wrestling Cafe. Sunday, we've got you think we're done on Saturday, everybody? We're like, that's just a halfway point, okay? Because on Sunday morning, we have the Newbie and Wrestling Advocates. And boy, what a week for them to drop a new show. There's going to be a lot to talk about from those guys. Davey and Sino? Is that right?
Yeah, they're going to be Saturday night. They're doing the Hard to Kill show now.
Okay, Saturday night, they're going to cover Impact, so that'll be out on the feed as well. And then, of course, we got WrestleNomics to wrap up the week on Sunday evening as well. So it's a very busy week here across all the post-wrestling shows.
Yes. So all of that is coming your way. Check it out at postwrestling.com. Listen to every last second and get back to us. We crave your listenership.
Yeah. And you might even get a response from John.
If you're polite, I'll give you a response, but it turns out if you're a jerk, I might respond as well, depending on the mood that I'm in. And I was in a mood when I got that message. We're going to chat just briefly about the cuts today. The latest round of cuts. These were primarily affecting the NXT side of things in WWE, and this reporting coming courtesy of Sean Ross Sapp at Fightful, as well as Mike Johnson at PWInsider.com. And the names that are out that were released, some big ones here. William Regal, who has been with the company for almost 22 years in a whole variety of roles, not the least of which was as someone that was out there recruiting talent and a huge reason of, acquiring the independent talent and building that black and gold brand. Lots you can say about William Regal. Road Dogg, Brian James, Ace Steel, who was serving as a coach, Dave Kapoor, who was an SVP in WWE and transitioned over to NXT. He had been with the company since 2007, starting off on the writing staff. Scott Armstrong, the brother of Bryan, Road Dogg. Allison Danger, who was a coach as well. And man, there is just a heartbreaking thread that Lenny Leonard wrote about a story that I'm sure there's plenty of people that have been cut that have stories that are similar, but Allison Danger, Kathy Carino, had moved to Orlando with her child, and over the break had gotten COVID. It affected her Christmas, and today was like her daughter's first day of school at her new school, and gets the news that she has been let go. And this is someone that uprooted their life to move to Orlando. It's like there's probably so many of these stories, and it's heartbreaking to hear about them. Ryan Katz, as well as Hideki Suzuki, who had been part of Diamond Mine, Timothy Thatcher, and Danny Burch, who we had not seen on television for a long time. And then on top of that, there was Sarah Cummins that Mike Johnson had reported. She had been serving as the Senior Vice President of Consumer Products. And George Carroll, who was had just come on board in NXT as both a producer and a writer. He had shown up on screen a couple of times. He was in a vignette with the Grizzled Young Vets and had kind of been seen as like an extra, but was doing producing and writing there. He had just been there since June, also part of the cuts. And these are one's way that I think when you look at it, especially when you see, Regal and Road Dogg, which are going to be the big ones that I think are going to top the list, it really feels like a lot of like the heart and soul of this NXT brand just being torn out. And someone like Regal that I don't know after the last 2 years that you look at anyone as being untouchable. I don't think you really can. I wouldn't say that, but at a time you would have assumed a William Regal. God, there's just so many different roles to have for an individual like that. An incredible story of, if you have followed like his personal tribulations that he had and how he turned his life around. I mean, it was a real feel-good story about this guy that was, a huge part of their developmental program over the last decade being let go.
Absolutely. Yeah. Somebody who I think has had just an incredible latter portion of his career. Talk about like a change in reputation, from where maybe the man was in his darkest times to where he is now, being universally respected behind the scenes and in front of the scenes as an on-screen performer. I would, say one of maybe the best on-screen manager that I think we've had in recent times. So you would certainly figure he would be somebody who maybe would have a job for life potentially, if the people in charge were still the people in charge. And I think this was just, another set of moves to indicate that
it's a regime change. I mean, it's out with the old and in with the new. That's what this very much feels like.
It's almost something to prevent the regime change, because the building blocks for the regime change were in this performance center, and slowly all of those pieces are being taken away and being replaced by members of the old regime. So yeah, Road Dogg is another name I would say even more so than, William Regal, that I felt was probably going to be a lifer in this company. So his release definitely comes as a surprise to me as well. Yeah.
And it's just, when you look at the level of knowledge that you have cut ties with, like a Regal, for instance, of just the amount of contacts that this man has amassed worldwide, and having his finger on the pulse of the independent scene when they were very aggressive in marketing. Like, this was a guy that was showing up at your PWGs and seeking out all of this talent and being up on who was on the rise, because that was the mandate for recruitment. And when I look at a lot of these performers that they're bringing in, that many of them do not have that independent experience, and to let a William Regal go, I find it stunning that you're sending a guy with that kind of institutional knowledge out into the marketplace. Of what that guy has been exposed to, his experiences, and really the entire structure of an NXT program. If I am an AEW that is seeking out long-term a developmental program of, hey, handing over Dark to somebody that has seen from the ground up building this and has all of this experience, all of these contacts, that's someone I'm very heavily recruiting coming out of this.
I mean, it feels like deja vu. Anytime there's one of these sets of releases, we think, hey, like, how would this piece fit into AEW? And it's certainly getting to the point now where I don't even know if we can suddenly just kind of bring that up, because it's a very full roster. I mean, maybe you make an exception for somebody like William Regal, who, from a developmental standpoint offers...
I'm not looking at this guy as even like on air or as
Right.
certainly not as a wrestler. This is more so for,
But we're still talking added salary to, already a pretty bloated AEW. And are they in a position to, make up whatever William Regal might have been making in the WWE? These jobs aren't going to come very easily in the wrestling industry, especially if you're somebody behind the scenes. So we definitely wonder for a lot of the people named here. I mean, I would expect some of them who weren't necessarily wrestling and were strictly coaching to re-enter the fold. And that includes a Timothy Thatcher, who I think would fit in many places. And I think fans, for this particular person would be happy to see him be more active as an in-ring performer than somebody backstage.
But it's tough. Like, you're being sent out, and remember, like, for some people, it's you get into that system, and maybe it's not the biggest money you can be making, but it's good money. It's a full-time position, and suddenly you have to take many steps back of going back to the independent circuit. Mentally, that's a hard adjustment that I've got to work just as hard, if not harder, in a very different environment than the one I left a couple of years ago. And I'm doing it for a fraction of the money. Like, what is my goal was moving forward towards a position like that. Now I'm so far back. And I mean, for talent, I think you hit the nail on the head with like AEW. There's only so many spots. And Tony Khan has said as much, that we have to be more judicious about, who we're going to bring in here. We can't just bring everyone in. And there's always going to be names that are just not going to fit there. It's catastrophic, but it's you don't ever get used to these days, and they're just so unfortunate.
It is, yeah, because everybody has, I'm sure, a heartbreaking story. I mean, everybody has dreams that are broken now, and stories like Allison Danger's, of all these people having to uproot their lives to follow this opportunity. And then, I mean, nothing's guaranteed ultimately, especially when you sign the contracts that they offer you. But it still absolutely sucks to hear. You're right. It never gets easier.
Yeah, there's a larger discussion that maybe contracts that they should be guaranteed. Like, when you sign something, like you guarantee something to them that you don't get.
Yeah,
it's a very sense, but the power imbalance is very evident from all of these.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll probably talk about this a bit more on the Daily News Show on Thursday at 1. But we do have a story up on the site if you want to read more about that. Tonight's Dynamite was the first on TBS from the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, and back at 8 o'clock Eastern and Pacific. So for those on the West Coast and select homes with the Mountain Time Zone, back at 8 p.m. So you have this staggered feed, and this was already going to be an interesting number to see what they draw their first week on TBS. But in theory, that should be an advantage for Dynamite this week.
Yes, because all the homes would be getting it at a more appropriate time, you would think, for people to watch.
Yes. So kicking things off was the rematch between Hangman Page and Bryan Danielson, 60-minute time limit. And our judges, after all of this buildup with the judges, they were Jerry Lynn, Paul White, and Mark Henry. And there was no real story to this or building to anything in the future. It was just to have 3 judges there if need be. And I love that Paul White and Mark Henry took the time when they were introduced to stand up and wave, not Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn was here to do a job. It's like, okay, you know who I am, whatever.
Yeah, he's not standing up. Come on.
Yeah, whatever. Let's get to the match.
He's too cool for that. No, he's like, yeah, I get the sense he's more like I don't want to, hog the spotlight type of thing. But as soon as they announced these judges and they're just dudes that are hanging out in the back anyway, it told me immediately that they weren't going to need the judges to play a significant role in this one, and that we weren't going to have to go to the judges at all. And yeah, why waste sort of, like, I don't know, Jason Hervey or like whoever you would want to get.
Yeah, don't waste Jason Hervey. Don't throw him away.
For a big celebrity cameo if they weren't going to be used.
I really thought we were going to get one of the Go Big Show judges to promote the show the next night.
Well,
they certainly did a lot of
show.
That's right. And
but people would have been upset at that because how would, I don't know, T-Pain judge a wrestling match?
Well, for credibility's sake, but I mean, I was just looking at it strictly for the promotion, which there was a lot of it on tonight's show. So the match begins, and I don't know how much you pay attention to the graphics when they put the messages up, but we had Danielson, and on his graphic it read, he has not been pinned or submitted in 4 hours of AEW ring time.
Wow,
4 hours
awesome.
This man has wrestled in AEW. Hangman Page, it read, has not won a match this year.
That's funny. It's an ongoing gag that the graphics guy has with Hangman Page, and I hope we never get a payoff in that for the rest of his AEW career. It's just like, this.
Yeah, they're funny. Danielson is running away as the match begins, and Page hits a suicide dive, but cannot hit the moonsault off the top. So instead, he hits Danielson with an apron bomb. And very early, he's teasing the buckshot, and Danielson is evading and ends up sending Page into the barricade. Page then is sent shoulder first into the post, reminiscent of the first match, and Danielson goes after the shoulder. He busts open Page near the steps as they go to the first picture-in-picture, and Page has a pretty solid flow going here of blood as he goes throughout the break. Danielson's targeting the cut, and the blood is getting all over Danielson. They fly over the top to the floor, and Page gets posted. They fight back, and it's Bryan here. Page is the one, when they go to the second commercial break, he's the one doing the jumping jacks to show how fresh he is. And in all of this, Danielson has been busted open, and Danielson ended up outdoing Page. There was a fair amount of blood between both men, but this was a bath here from Danielson.
Yeah. You debut on a new channel, and you show them the type of content that the channel is about to get.
Welcome to TBS. That bloody show.
Bloody show, exactly. Yeah. I mean, when Bryan first showed off his cut, it didn't look that bad. And then you come back from commercial, and this dude made Page's cut look like a paper cut. It was the most I've seen Bryan bleed in years. Certainly never in the WWE have I seen him bleed this much. So, yeah, it was quite the sight.
Did you mean to say that Page had a paper cut?
Yeah.
It's kind of clever.
I didn't even think about it. Yes, I did mean it. Yeah.
Page does the fall-away moonsault. They move to the floor, and Danielson comes off the apron and gets caught with the deadeye on the floor. And Page sets up for the buckshot lariat, but Danielson collapses before contact can be made. And then he lures in Page into the label lock. And this crowd, they are going nuts. It was so loud at this point in the match. Page gets out, hits the moonsault to the floor. Danielson then ducks a buckshot and hits the Busaiku knee for an insane near fall. Newark deserved a round of applause here. It was so loud. They have this headbutt battle, but a very safe one as they were getting the hands up, but they were just launching their heads at one another. Rolling elbow from Danielson, and then Danielson stops the deadeye, hits the Gotch pile driver, and he's pretty much going through the whole rotation of finishers that he's introduced to us over those 4 hours of match time. Danielson runs into a powerbomb. Page is caught in a triangle. Danielson goes to the heel hook. All the different methods he's used. Breaks free. He rains down strikes on Danielson. Backdrop driver, buckshot lariat, and he pins Bryan Danielson 29 minutes, 4 seconds in a excellent match.
Absolutely fantastic match. There's some recency bias here, but I think this might have been my favorite Bryan match since he's come back to AEW, or since he's arrived at AEW, I should say. I think this was the culmination of a fantastic story that they built throughout all the Dark Order hometown appearances to the 1 hour draw. And I think, like we were wondering, okay, how are they going to top a 1 hour draw? And they did it with blood, John, a lot of it. It was a really great pace throughout from the get-go. I think every single second of this was exciting. You had visually, I think, the most stunning of all the Bryan matches that we've had so far, for that matter, maybe all the Page matches that we've had. And it was a 30-minute match that ultimately, to me, really felt like 5, in terms of intensity, in terms of atmosphere.
The atmosphere was amazing.
It was electric, yeah.
Like the first one, like it's an accomplishment in and of itself that you hold people's attention for 60 minutes. It wasn't like they just got points for going 60. Like it was a real compelling 60. But this one, it was so intense. It had so many of the callbacks with Danielson's different finishing techniques that he was going for. I thought Page was a phenomenal babyface. It's like sometimes you wonder if a Page is going to be able to rise to the level of some of these opponents, and whether it's Omega or Danielson, like we've seen it time after time, like he has become such a seasoned performer, and on the level of these guys. And this, like you can take your pick of which match you enjoyed more, but man, was this a fantastic follow-up. I love this match. It was just, if anything, it was just so great that it was kind of tough to get into anything else on this show, because the match quality was just so through the roof with this first half hour of the show. And I think they kind of tried to not go at it. Like we had like some quick squashes after this, talking segments, like really trying to like take you on a totally different path after following this, because if you had put the tag titles or the TBS match right after this, it would have suffered for sure. It was smart to space those out.
It's an expected challenge with any of these Dynamite shows. They put the main event first to try to capitalize, and it was especially important tonight on a brand new channel to get people to tune in right off the bat at the very beginning. But yeah, I thought it was like they more than stuck the landing on this terrific story that they've told. And what do you think is next for either of them?
With Danielson, yeah, you've got to go towards the next contender.
Does he stay heel?
Danielson?
Mm-hmm.
I think you do. I wouldn't want to just flip him back just because this program is over. I think you've kind of made this switch, and I mean he does have that ability that I think you can with a proper heel opponent. He can shift, and as we saw with this turn, it's not like it's this abrupt change that is jarring to the audience. Like it's a major change when you step back and look at it, but in real time, he was just making slight alterations, and it was all stuff he introduced. And if he's smart, I think he can weave his way between baby faces and heels, and that's his greatest value.
Yeah, like if he wants the audience to cheer for him, they will cheer for him like tomorrow if they wanted to. What I do hope is that he keeps this anger and this aggression. I mean, in this match, with this amount of blood and this intensity, was the meanest I have seen Bryan Danielson thus far in AEW, and I hope he keeps that. I don't want to see the guy pandering. I don't want to really even see him doing yes chants. I don't want any of that stuff. I want this guy to still be mean and still be aggressive, especially in the matches.
How about with Page? Do you where do you see him going after this? It's a long time until the pay-per-view, which I would imagine is when you peak for his next big title defense.
Well, yeah. I mean, Punk and MJF, of course, are both kind of vying for the championship, and I imagine their match will ultimately determine who faces Page next. But
that's where I think it's going. Like it really seems as Punk MJF, they're not going to hold that off till Revolution. Like that seems like they're going to go with that within a month or so.
Yeah, and then, but Page is going to need opponents in the meantime. And are there any serious challengers? Will there be any serious opponents? Is Miro ready to come back? Is Moxley ready to come back? I mean, there's a question too.
Do you see him defending the title on TV before the pay-per-view?
Oh, how many weeks are we away? Like 2.
We got 2 months.
2 months, then yes.
It's a long time.
Yeah, I definitely do. We'll also probably find out on Saturday, like if there's going to be another TNT special maybe soon.
Right. Well, there's 4 in the year, so it'll probably be a while till they do the next one.
Right.
I got to say, after tonight, this Battle of the Belts, would you be buying a ticket to go see this on Saturday? Like, what are you getting on Saturday if you're just watching this? Like, you're aware of 2 matches.
Yeah. I mean, this match completely overshadowed, I think, whatever they're trying to build on Saturday, as it should. It's a move to TBS. That, again, we've talked about the timing of the Saturday show maybe coming a little bit awkwardly.
It's just puzzling that they have booked a venue to go live on Saturday night for this, and it just feels like I'm sure, like, you can throw in matches that you can tape for future, but it's just, as a live event, and the Bojangles Coliseum, it's not like it's some tiny arena either that you're trying to sell tickets for this on top of it, and I just don't know what would compel someone to buy a ticket to this based on what the buildup has been.
I mean, I do believe they have enough stars. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see, like, or to hear about a Bryan or Punk special house show match that maybe only that particular audience will see, that they'll bank for their tape library, perhaps. Well,
great. When are they going to announce that then?
You're right. Yeah, maybe Friday. I don't know. Maybe in the days ahead. But you're right. Like they probably have to do some announcing of what else is going to be on this show for the live crowd.
Like, for a 1 hour show, it's like you've got some stars on it, like Cody and Guevara. It's a big match. Britt Baker and Rio, they built up for a while. Like, as a 1 hour show, like it doesn't feel like a huge show, but it's it's 2 title matches. It's how much
again, if this was not the TBS week, I'm willing to bet they would have put a proper page title defense on that first TNT special.
So the Acclaim do a promo calling Sting a boomer. They laid out Sting and Darby last week, and they're going to show them what people of our generation do to take care of business. Next week, a viral video. They're dropping a diss track on these 2.
Can you claim a video is going to be viral before it's released?
They're being very presumptuous.
All right.
So we look forward to that. Will we get a response from Sting after?
Sting rap?
Yes.
I would love that.
MJF comes out and he's challenging some fan with a CM Punk sign, giving the middle finger to other fans, and his opponent is Shawn Dean. And the match begins, and CM Punk runs down to an outrageous reaction. And he chases MJF out. The audience is going crazy for Punk. And then Punk attacks Shawn Dean with the GTS. Therefore, Shawn Dean wins by DQ in 43 seconds. And as they explain, the records reset at the beginning of the year. So MJF is 0-1.
When Punk came out here and when he attacked Shawn Dean, another babyface, I was like, what the hell? And then the reveal of the strategy, I actually thought was really brilliant. It was a really smart play from Punk to take advantage of AEW's yearly rankings reset. And the story here is that Punk intends to derail MJF's goal of vying for the championship. So I thought this was really a brilliant way to get there. Kind of sucks for Shawn Dean, but I mean, Shawn Dean's not a focused player right now. I don't know if they intend for him to be. I know he's got some backstage role, hiring talents for Dark. So he might have just been considered somebody expendable anyway. And I thought it set up a great promo battle between these 2.
Punk says, yeah, this is going to happen every time until you step into the ring with me, you little bitch. MJF insults New Jersey and says that everything that comes out of Punk's mouth is fake. You induce boredom. And says without MJF, Punk is nothing. I make you relevant. You're not the same guy you used to be, and you sold Tony Khan a bill of goods. And MJF brings up the comparison he made to Roddy Piper in Portland. The crowd starts a PG Punk chant, and MJF says that unlike Punk, Piper was talented enough to headline a WrestleMania, and the crowd responds to this insult and says that if he isn't respected around here, maybe I'll main event a WrestleMania too. And Punk says, I just came here to kick your ass, and if you think the grass is greener, then go ahead and main event night 4 of buy one, get one free extravaganza, and then get released. And when you come back here, I'll still be here to kick your ass. I thought this was a great line by MJF and an even better response from Punk. And it was, I just thought, like, you know your audience and what they're going to react to. And I thought this was just like great interaction.
The line in specific was, "Get released quicker than you last in bed," which, man, was so awesome. Yeah, absolutely. You know, Punk bringing up the Mania thing. Of course, we all know that was one of Punk's big criticisms of his WWE run. Like, it's something he really wanted that he never had.
You know, it's a personal line that would affect him, and that's where it was great ammunition for the promo.
And this crowd completely got it. But even if you weren't aware of all that history, I think you would have just saw it as, oh, okay, he mentioned, like, you know, WWE. It was a great line. But Punk's response was even better, and that to me is a great sign of a great promo battle between the two. Especially, I love it, especially when the babyface comes out on top afterwards and, you know, prompts MJF to do the cowardly thing.
MJF asks if people want the match. So he says, next week, it's CM Punk versus Wardlow. And the crowd chants bullshit at this. And Punk says that him and Piper are guys that would fight anyone, anytime. I'll beat Wardlow, and I'm going to put you to sleep. So that is next week, Wardlow and CM Punk in North Carolina.
Overall, I love this TV segment. I think it was a perfect follow-up to the Paige Danielson intense in-ring drama. You know, follow that up with, I think, a bit of mind games between these two and a fantastic promo exchange between the two best speakers in the company right now. This was another chapter that felt worthwhile and didn't feel repetitive, even though they've done like when they first did that big talking segment, I thought, well, how many weeks are they going to be able to, like, you know, talk to each other to top what they did? And they find ways. Like, they find ways to do different things and to keep this whole thing compelling and to continue to heat up this rivalry. And I've loved almost all of them.
They aired a video previewing Cody and Guevara for Battle of the Belts, narrated by Jennifer Nettles of Go Big Show. And then Chris Jericho comes out, his first appearance on TBS since April of 1999, and he was able to get a TBS chant going here from this crowd. He explains he did not come out last week to save Eddie Kingston, but instead to go after those 2.0 dipshits. So Matt Lee and Jeff Parker come out and are referred to as Terrence and Phillip. And then Jericho...
Usually lines like that are like, oh, okay, whatever. But then Matt Lee started talking.
It was like, if you get the Terrence and Phillip reference, which I don't know how many people are going to necessarily get, as soon as
this audience gets it.
I think so. I think so. You're right, because to me, I was like, are people going to get that? And then they talked, and dude, I like laughed as soon as he talked. And these two, Matt Lee and Jeff Parker, these guys have tremendous comedic timing. Like, they know how to be the butts of the joke. And that is an art sometimes, of knowing how to, like, feed the guy that's insulting you. And they pretty much did that here.
It makes me wonder if they were if Matt Lee was intentionally trying to sound like Terrence and Phillip, or if I kind of think that's just the way he actually sounds.
I think he just kind of turned it up here. But the focus then went to Lee's forehead, looking like a Post-it note. And then he dubbed them Squarehead and Pinhead as they got upset at Jericho, who got a bat. And Daniel Garcia tried to jump Jericho. He got hit with the bat, but it was 3-on-1 until Santana, Ortiz, and Eddie Kingston ran down to clear the ring and set up our no-holds-barred match on Friday.
As a setup to a Friday Rampage match, I thought it was absolutely fine. But the internet didn't seem to react well to a lot of these.
They did not enjoy the Squarehead Pinhead references.
Yeah, the Jericho kind of very PG sounding types of insults. And they especially did not enjoy whoever dyed Jericho's hair with that lazy ass, terrible dye job. I don't know what this was, man. This was like something went wrong, because this thing, like, it looked like he had, like, you know, oil dripped on his head.
What would you do if you had like a bad dye job? Like, would you wear a hat?
I would have worn the hat. I would have.
I can't even picture Jericho wearing a hat.
Well, he's got the fedora from time to time.
The fedora.
I would have shaved my head off. Like honestly, like if
I don't think he could do that. I don't think Jericho would do that for free.
But man, this thing looked awful. So I don't
think
know.
The thing with like Chris Jericho is a babyface in AEW. Like he uses a lot of material that I think people look at as like cliche or it's like low hanging fruit. But like I watch all of these shows and it's like these live crowds, they eat it up. And it's like, I understand why some people like it's not, maybe the sophisticated promos you get out of like an MJF, but it's stuff that typically 9 times out of 10 gets over with these crowds. So I understand it.
Yeah, I understand it too. No, I had no issue with the pinhead square head thing. I thought it actually.
I really
worked.
didn't. I was amused at like the Terrence and Phillip line, and I find 2.0 to be hilarious. It's like the 3. I thought I had really no big issue with it, but yeah, I definitely saw it. This did not seem like a very popular segment.
I just more so saw the hair comments. So I hope he like plays with that and like, I hope like the 2.0 bring it up, like use it, it's an opportunity to like, I don't know, get a reaction next week.
They showed footage of Jake Atlas on Dark Elevation against Serpentico and announcing that he is signed. And then we cut to Adam Cole with Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. And Cole says that he knows that Kyle didn't mean to hit him last week. And if the 3 of us with the Young Bucks are all on the same page, we are a super group and unstoppable. And then Cole proposes a one-on-one match with Jake Atlas this Friday on Rampage so he can send him on a one-way ticket back to Orlando. And it ends with Kyle saying, "Cut it, Landon."
Yes, keeping the name calling gimmick. I kind of like that we're slowly starting to turn Rampage into NXT Black and Gold. It just kind of feels like we're having that whole roster just migrate over.
Yeah, and they've also turned Orlando into like the last place you want to end up in the wrestling world.
I mean, after news events like news days like today, it's getting that reputation.
It's got a within the industry. I think it's like WWE. It's like it's a horrible reputation you have, more so amongst like those within the industry that is how they view like just how callous it is, how there's no commitment to its talent, and it's certainly like the audience sees that, but more so it's like the guys in the industry, like it's embarrassing. Yeah.
And you saw it in the MJF promo. I mean, MJF is a heel building himself on him wanting to go to the WWE,
which is a very smart play.
Very smart, absolutely. But yeah, no mention of the Bucks being out or Brandon Cutler being out due to COVID, and I mean the Bucks don't appear on every episode anyway, so I didn't affect the story at all tonight.
No. And given like the new guidelines, like you would expect them back next week. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Wardlow and Antonio Zambrano, who's a local wrestler in New Jersey. Spears attacks him with the C4 on the floor, rolls him in, and Wardlow's kind of pissed that Spears has attacked this guy. So he proceeds to hit 5 power bombs, and the crowd just gets louder and louder. 1:25, Wardlow wins, standing on top of him. So short, quick squash, and continuing Wardlow's frustration with Spears, and probably needs to go to the next chapter next week with the Punk match, and maybe Spears costing Wardlow the match or something like that, like screwing up in the process.
Sure. Yeah. Continuing to heat that up. And this Lesnar push I think is really working for Wardlow.
These crowds are getting into him. Like the Powerbomb Symphony is working very effectively.
Yeah. I'm just kind of, MJ is mentioning in the chat something about Jake Atlas possibly getting hurt at the tapings. So we'll follow up on that tomorrow, probably, when we'll find out.
Yeah. Only so much we can do when we're recapping this live. Jade Cargill. First, they showed highlights of Layla Hirsch on Dark, not getting along with Red Velvet and Chris Statlander. And then we go to the TBS tournament final with Ruby Soho taking on Jade Cargill. And Ruby gets sent to the floor early, and Mercedes Martinez came down. Thunder Rosa runs down, attacking Mercedes. They go through the picture-in-picture, and it's like the go-to injury for Ruby Soho is attacking the shoulder, and she was driven into the post from the apron, and it was Soho fighting with one arm for the rest of the way here. Jade hit a shoulder breaker, pump kick for a 2 count, and then Ruby comes back with a Saito suplex as Mark Sterling gets onto the apron and is ejected by Aubrey Edwards. Jade then counters with a roll-up, and Ruby hits the no future for a near fall, hitting, I would say, a 5 on the Ruby Soho scale of shock.
I thought we were gonna get another 10 Ruby Soho.
It was.
shock
I
face.
thought we were going there, and it was almost like she caught herself and like kind of like simmered it a little.
I don't know why. I think she should do it every time. Like
I
every
want her
big-
to hit a 20. I want her to get bigger than last time. Like it needs to be like her thing is the shock face.
Yes.
So they battle on the turnbuckle, and Jade is setting up for Jaded, and she clearly was going for like the top turnbuckle, but the footing was off. So she just showed like the presence of like, okay, it's not going to work to the top. We're going to go off the second turnbuckle, which I thought was like a very smart decision in the moment. Hit Jaded and wins in 11 minutes and 13 seconds.
There's no way that move would have worked on the top turnbuckle. I don't know how.
It looked pretty scary for her to like. She's on the second turnbuckle with the move applied, and just imagine her stepping both feet up, holding Ruby. And you know, for a lot of people who are inexperienced, and you've got the big move in your mind, it's like you've got to hit this at all cost. And she just realized this on the fly, like, hey, not happening, and made the right call.
Yeah. I mean, the end result didn't look great either, I have to say, but they finished the match and created a really great moment here. You know, she had her hit kid in the crowd.
Yep.
This was an audience that absolutely wanted to see her win, and I don't think this was a good technical match, I have to say. But it didn't seem to affect the crowd's enjoyment. You know, Jade is over. They wanted to see her win. I've said this, you know, throughout the tournament. I do have my concerns about whether or not she can pull off the standard of quality that we've come to expect from AEW champions. I think she'll need a roster of very strong opponents in order to carry her through a lot of these matches. But she is the person who should be champion. She's the one with the presence. She's the one with the star power. She's the one with the mainstream appeal. And in professional wrestling, we have seen plenty of success come from wrestlers who are holding championships who aren't really the best in-ring wrestlers, but have other people build them up to the level for the benefit of the company. But that's not to say she doesn't need to improve, because I think now with the microscope on her with the belt, she has to improve exponentially. And she has to be better than I think what we saw tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great match. It was largely contingent on like Ruby's selling for the majority of it. And the question is like, you know, you put the title on her, like that's a big step up. And do you just go with like shorter matches for her, or do you put her in these longer matches now that they are title matches, which they're going to be tough, but that's sort of what she needs to be doing when you don't have sort of your traditional developmental or house show touring where, you know, these are the matches you get there for everybody to see on national television. So like, I hope it's a positive, but you put the title on her, like it's a higher level of expectation.
Especially in this company. You know, if it was a WWE championship, 2-3 minute matches, I don't think that'd be as difficult. But if you're going to headline the occasional Rampage or future Battle of the Belts, you're going to be expected to perform at the appropriate level.
So this is from someone that was at the arena tonight, and the message they sent me was Jake Atlas debuted against Adam Cole. Seems like he might have hurt his knee legitimately, or just been really good selling, but the match fell apart and they went to a finish really quickly. So obviously we haven't seen this, but that was from someone that was at the arena tonight.
Yeah, Brian Alvarez tweeting that out as well, that he's awaiting details on a knee injury. But man, terrible night as far as injuries go.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, we'll get to more in the main event. Jim Ross did a sit down with Serena Deeb on her rivalry with Hikaru Shida. And she asks, what wrestler is on my level? I'm the professor of professional wrestling because I have a PhD in this shit. and she takes what she wants. And today I demanded from Tony Khan a match with Hikaru Shida next week, and I'm going to take 17 years of frustration out on her, and she won't walk out on her own.
Deeb sounded great. Absolutely great here. You know, I think the women's division is lacking in strong heels, and especially strong heels who can appear mean and intense when they're cutting promos. And I thought Deeb brought it. Like, she sounded great.
PhD in this shit.
PhD.
Oh my goodness,
it's terrible.
Well, I mean, she might borrow that. Malakai Black, Bryan Pillman Jr. with Julia Hart with an eye patch.
Yes, the return.
One eye was saved, but the other not so much from that mist.
And Bryan Pillman had some like black shit under his eyes too. Like, not that much, not like Aleister Black level, but like,
yeah,
almost looked like he had like dirty.
Well, he was possessed. The ending of this match, he was obviously possessed by something.
Sure, yeah.
They go through picture in picture. Black just lifts him up. He's pretty much having his way with Pillman. Pillman holds onto the leg and starts fighting back and gets Malakai up and brings him down into a jackhammer. And then he goes for a springboard and like trips up on the top rope and just rolls into Black, who hits the Black Mass and pinned him. I don't know. I really felt like it was an intentional botch. Oh, I think it was completely intentional. The way he like rolled like right in and he was there for the Black Mass. It was, I thought, completely intentional. I just didn't think this really clicked. I really enjoy these Malakai Black destructions on TV, and Pillman took that amazing Black Mass a few weeks ago, but I don't know. It just seemed something off in this one. And maybe it was also having like the picture in picture in the middle there as well for what I thought was just going to be a much quicker deal. I don't know. This one just really didn't connect with me.
I don't disagree. It was also in the death spot right before the main event, you know, and pretty much like with a half hour to go on the show, where I think everybody was just kind of impatient and waiting for the main event anyway. I don't think this needed to be anything but another showcase for Aleister Black, and that's ultimately how it came across. Can't really say it was all that particularly interesting or memorable from Pillman's perspective. So...
Are we seeing the Varsity Blondes all fall under Malakai Black's spell? Is that what we're going towards?
I mean, I didn't get that. Did you get that indication? Because I thought Julia Hart would reemerge like Julia Black, you know, like, or at least like change. But it just seemed like this was.
Well, they did show her kind of looking distressed in the corner, and not they pointed out like she wasn't her usual like perky self. So. I guess the idea here is if they're going to eventually be under like Malakai
how long does the infection of the mist take to take hold? Is it 10 days? Is it
Alexa Bliss has been under it for like over a year, so it can be it's a long road to recovery.
Okay, we'll see. Then like the Lucha Brothers came out here, so teasing something between the Aleister Black and.
Right.
The Lucha Brothers.
So the Lucha Brothers come out to help, and the lights go out. And when they come on, they've switched spots where Malakai was in the ring and now he's on the ramp, and the Lucha Brothers are in the ramp, and then they just go back to tending to Pillman in the ring.
So he's got like trading places powers and like swap places with the person he's looking at.
Yes. Yeah. It's
cool.
Or maybe it's
convenient.
Yeah. I don't know what was going on here, but they can.
I mean, they're obviously teasing something between the Lucha Brothers and what I would presume to be the House of Black. You know, perhaps a tag team partner for Aleister Black, maybe Brody King. Don't know.
Shivani was with
obviously not happening immediately now.
Right. Shivani is with Ruby Soho backstage and is interrupted by Britt Baker, who says this is the second time you couldn't get the job done after Grand Slam. And Ruby points out that Baker never wins without help from the other two, and you've never beat Riho. And they all get into a fight, big pull apart. Rio is there, and this was a AEW backstage brawl. We had to have at least one on the show.
Yeah, like if there's something that I don't like on a consistent level about this company, it's just these backstage segments. They're not that creative.
It's an intense locker room, way. They have short fuses. So here is the lineup for Rampage. So Adam Cole and Jake Atlas providing that ends up airing, I guess would be a question to have. Daniel Garcia and 2.0 against Eddie Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz. No DQ, no rules, no holds barred. Dr. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter versus Riho and Ruby Soho. And Hook will take on Aaron Solo. QT took all the credit for Hook training at his school. He's a delinquent who came in late, left early, and just ate chips. A delinquent.
Sounds like a good day. Not for you.
Yeah, no, not at all. I would throw this guy out immediately. And then Dynamite next week, they've announced Punk and Wardlow, Sheeta and Deeb, and Powerhouse Hobbs versus Dante Martin. That's in Raleigh, North Carolina. The Lucha Brothers versus Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus for the AEW tag titles. This match had an unfortunate moment at the end, but they were having a hell of a match on the way towards this. There was a spot early where all four locked hands, and then Jungle Boy and Fenix go to the top and arm drag the other two, and then Penta returns just to kick Jungle Boy in the head. Penta pops Jungle Boy onto the apron into Fenix running the top rope with the penalty kick. They go through the picture-in-picture. Heat is on Jungle Boy, who eventually tags Luchasaurus, and Jungle Boy leaps over Luchasaurus into a destroyer on Penta. This looked phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really great.
Fenix then does a springboard into a destroyer on Luchasaurus. There's a Made in Japan by Penta for a 2 count on Jungle Boy. And then the Lucha Brothers are double teaming them when the lights go out. But then they come back on and we're left wondering what the lights out are meaning here. So we got the lights going down again.
Okay, so yeah, another Malakai Black tease, right?
Yeah. I think that's what everyone.
But like when the lights go out, usually something happens, right?
Well, I mean that maybe this is going to be a recurring bit, and then it will have its big reveal at a later date.
But it didn't even have an effect on the match.
Well, we also don't know how the ending maybe had to be rushed to, or if the lights were going to go down again. I don't know, or it's just going to be something that's going to plague the Lucha Brothers for the next while before they reveal who's behind it.
I mean, it just, to me, came across more as like a technical malfunction than anything deliberately affecting the Lucha Brothers or the match.
Well, that's how they introduced Malakai. Remember, like they did do the idea that it was the malfunction, and then it paid off. It paid off that night, but it was a recurring bit too.
Yeah, I guess I don't like it because it's not believable at all.
Dude, anytime the lights go out, people go nuts. They love the lights going out. But that's usually because they think they're getting something and they're making you wait here. So Penta then drapes Jungle Boy on the corner. Fenix hits this tornillo over Jungle Boy, hitting Penta on the floor. And then they hit a Fear Factor for a near fall. Alex Abrahantes sets up a table on the floor. Christian goes after Abrahantes, and it climaxes with Fenix leaping into the arms of Luchasaurus, who chokeslams Fenix off the apron through the table, and his arm just gets destroyed going through this table. It was totally nasty looking, and everyone was concerned here.
Yeah, I don't even want to describe how it looked, but like,
yeah.
One of the worst breaks, I think, of a body part I feel like we've seen in broadcast professional wrestling. It was immediately concerning if you noticed it. I'm willing to bet a lot of people didn't immediately, because if there's any silver lining for this terrible thing, I mean, I suppose it's that it came at the very end of not just the match but of the Lucha Brothers title run. So him not being a part of the match felt completely natural, and the participants, I wonder if they were even aware, until afterwards. Certainly, I don't know if the commentators were aware. I don't know if the production was aware of what they had just broadcast, because they freely replayed it.
If you weren't watching closely, like you wouldn't have noticed. But it was very, very concerning, and you obviously just hope for the best for Fenix. Like this could be, it is a really bad injury. So it continues. The package pile driver is stopped. Jungle Boy goes for the kill switch, but it's stopped. And Made in Japan gets countered as Jungle Boy rolls up Penta and pins him in 14:34 as Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus win the tag titles. And afterwards, you had all the different tag teams coming out on the stage. You had the Inner Circle in the crowd, and they were just going to all these weird shots of people like Jericho and Malakai Black, and then having some of the teams on the stage. And I didn't quite understand why like a Malakai Black was like sitting like a normal citizen in the crowd. But the idea here I took was that all these teams are like sizing up Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and, you know, plotting to go after the champions and maybe looking at Jungle Boy as like this weak link that we can capitalize on.
Yeah. Well, where else is Malakai Black supposed to sit?
I mean, the guy is like, I assume like he like
the rafters are taken.
He's like floating in space or something after his match, or I don't know.
He's just floating.
I don't imagine him like being a guy that's
Malakai Black
like
floating,
going to buy some nachos and sitting to catch the main event before he's got to get back to the hotel and his flight tomorrow morning.
The man has teleportation powers, but I mean, he's got to sit too, right? You can't teleport all the time. He teleported to his seat. But no, I do think the intent was to show that, okay, the division is wide open now. All these people are people with tag teams or maybe about to start tag teams in the case of Malakai Black. And they're all gunning after these tag titles. It's kind of how I took it. And of course, we also had Jungle Boy's family in attendance as well.
That's right. They showed, I think, his mom and sister in the crowd.
Maybe they're forming a tag team. Maybe they're going after the belts next.
Jungle Mom and Jungle Sister.
Jungle Mom. That sounds like a great band name. But this was, I think, a great moment that they were setting up after a great match. Really, like. But all I can think about, unfortunately, and I think most of us what could think about it was the really unfortunate injury. So hopefully we hear some updates soon, and whatever we hear, we'll try to discuss tomorrow.
So that was the first Dynamite on TBS. Yeah, very unfortunate ending with Fenix in the main event. But I would say I thought. That title match, the Danielson Page, was just spectacular. I think like this week you got, I would say like 3 matches that are of the highest caliber in the 2 Okada matches, Danielson and Page, a super memorable match in Shibata and Ren Narita. Like you've had some great pro wrestling 5 days into the year.
Certainly. Yeah.
Even that day one main event, that was a great main event.
Even New Year's Evil. I had some
New Year's Evil
matches.
was a really entertaining show. I thought, man, we were kind of talking about what was going to be the match of the show, and man, that Roderick Strong is just a phenomenal wrestler, and him and Carmelo Hayes, that was a phenomenal opener.
Yes. But yeah, I thought this was a great show. AEW really made this feel special, and I'm gonna guess it might even feel a bit more special than Battle of the Belt. 2 new champions were crowned on this one on a TV show. An incredible, like, honestly, just one of my favorite TV matches that I've seen from AEW right off the bat on this show, and a stellar Punk MJF promo battle. So again, a really unfortunate ending, but I can't take away from the effort that they put into creating this 2 hours.
All right, let's start off with feedback at forum.postwrestling.com. Bruce Lord writes, between the title match and the Punk MJF segment, I don't think TBS could have asked for a hotter start to AEW's tenure with the channel. I think I slightly preferred the first Page Danielson match, but there's no question that Page's stock has been massively raised by this feud. While a bit rough around the edges, the Ruby Jade match showed some further improvement on the latter's part, and Jade was always the logical choice for the TBS belt. That said, Martinez and Rosa might be the match on the horizon I'm most excited about, women or men. On a less positive note, Saturday's card still seems to be getting short shrift, with more or less equal focus being placed on Rampage as on Battle of the Belts. If these quarterly specials are meant to be modeled after Clash of the Champions, I'm not sure that the 2 matches announced thus far feel hot enough to live up to that legacy. Has there been any word as to whether the scheduling of the show was at the network's behest rather than AEW's? I mean, obviously you are going to be at the mercy of your broadcaster of like when, it's going to be a collaborative effort of when these events are going to be put together. It would seem like not knowing what the machinations are, that this probably timing wise was not the best to have right with the TBS special happening days before. On top of it, like for a company like AEW, like how big can you make a 1 hour special on a show that?
Well, you could announce Paige versus Bryan. Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud, and if that show was more of a priority, if they had swapped maybe Riho versus Britt Baker instead on this show and put Bryan versus Paige on Battle of the Belts, would that have made for a more smooth transition? But I mean, ultimately, I think we'd all agree that the TBS move was probably more important.
Yeah. Like I don't like if you have to choose between the two, like what are we going to go hard promoting? It's this one. Like this is where you've got to draw people on every Wednesday night. And for the first week, you want to establish that habit with something big. So, yeah, it's like we will see what happens on Saturday and then for future ones, like I just see like a 1 hour time slot. It just seems to me to be that's really tough to program.
Yeah. We got Ari from Montreal who says, crazy how two big title matches can be so different. World title match was great with all the spots and blood making sense, whereas the tag match was a mess. The ref is basically useless, yelling 20 times one person in the ring, and an unnecessary table spot with a pretty sloppy ending. Jungle Boy winning a title should have been a big moment, but it did not seem like it. AEW does great things, then really bizarre things. After all the crap we're given over the years to WWE Embrace Powers, are we to simply ignore for AEW's Malakai Black and simply praise it? I hope not.
I mean, what were his powers? The lights have gone out?
Yeah, like what exactly are the extent of Malakai Black's powers that he's shown in AEW thus far?
He spit mist, which you can do. You could physically spit mist into someone's eye.
Yeah, he blinds people. He kicks them. Like, I don't think we've seen the supernatural, other than the place-switching powers, but that's just like lights out stuff, like...
It doesn't really... I don't know how the Lucha Brothers moved in that whole sequence. Like, I could see Malakai Black moving to screw with them, but how did the Lucha Brothers move?
We haven't seen goop drip out of any Julia Hart's head yet.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any dolls. We haven't seen the worst of the craziness. Ultimately, it does come down to like what is in ring, and as long as they provide that and don't go too far with the hocus pocus, I think this thing will still work and still be acceptable for a more mature audience. So I don't think we've hit the point of comparison yet.
Okay, Johnny writes, I hope Phoenix is all right, but that looked like a nasty break. I heard his scream. Aside from that, what a show. AEW doing a DQ that actually plays into a story, with Punk costing MJF a match to try and work his way into a singles match. Love it, but don't do a DQ for at least a year. But let's get to the match of the night and the high bar for the rest of the year. Bryan said he came to AEW to wrestle, and the man has strung together a fantastic run of matches. Blood is not rare in AEW, but when used right, it adds to a match like the greatest of seasoning. While Omega might have been the best story-driven opponent for Paige, I think Danielson will be known as Paige's best opponent. The main event minus the injury was fantastic, but it made for an argument with my friend and JR. The ref's 10 count for the illegal man seems to be ignored for AEW tag matches. How much weight needs to be put on this count if the crowd doesn't mind and is into the match? I mean, this is a frequent complaint that people will have especially of the tag matches. And it's, listen, if you're going to be turned off by that kind of thing, this is not going to click with you. But these are the kinds of matches that I think a large part of the audience is more than willing to forgive that the rules are relaxed. They want to see spectacular matches when especially Phoenix and Penta are in, and you're trying to get over to the most amount of people. And that's what these matches are. I don't think you want to see... The referee will be a heel if he's enforcing like the 10 count and thwarting all of this offense from these high flyers. And that's going to turn off people that want to see more of like the rules in place.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I don't think this is a point of contention for people that aren't looking for it. But I will say, I do think there needs to be some communication between Jim Ross, the referees, and wrestlers that are known to abuse this a lot. Because I think it's fine to have it, but to have your commentator constantly point it out and not have anything be done about it, I think is just detrimental to your overall presentation. If Jim Ross realizes, okay, nothing's going to happen, well, why continue to bring it up? it doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help to, and if he thinks it's important enough to bring up, then I think he should communicate with Tony Khan so that Tony can communicate with the wrestlers and communicate with the refs to actually have repercussions the next time something like this happens. It to me just kind of feels, a little inconsistent between presentation and what we see. We go up next to Andrew from Cape Breton, who says, when Shawn Dean won his match via DQ, I'm surprised Tony Khan didn't brag about it on Twitter. Tonight was definitely a great night for the company. Oh man, okay. Tonight was definitely a great night for the company. The world title match was excellent and definitely a great way to solidify Page as the top guy. There are no real negative comments on the show. The Wardlow squash was good. Black and Pillman was good. The TBS title is on a strong, undefeated performer, and the tag match was excellent despite the horrific injury. I think one negative is AEW sometimes will do unnecessary spots. And that table spot where Fenix got hurt was really unnecessary, and it will likely cost Fenix a lot of time due to his injury. Well, how do you deem necessary? What's necessary? Was it simply unnecessary because he got injured?
That's it. I mean, if the spot went fine, no one would be complaining about it. It was a spectacular ending to the match that was going to take Fenix out. It's a tragedy that he got hurt, but I wouldn't call the spot unnecessary. It was designed to be the reason that Fenix was laid out on the floor, and it was going to be arguably the second biggest pop of the match behind the finish.
In terms of danger, I mean, I feel like we see much worse, from Risk than
dude. So like some of the destroyer spots we saw in this were like that Jungle Boy destroyer spot. I mean that could have gone wrong, just being an inch off.
Nobody could have foreseen, the type of landing he could have had. So
it's unfortunate, but I'm not going to say like the spot was like without thought. Like it was there for a reason. Vic writes, the title match was an awesome bloody brawl that I liked more than their first match. The thing I hated about this and the TBS title match later was that they don't give the title celebrations time to breathe. There was, and I guess it's kind of hard to do it with the Jade Cargill character, but they had a photo online after of her on the ramp after winning with her daughter. And I thought that would have been a cool thing to show on TV, even if it somewhat breaks with the character. It's like, okay, this is a cool moment that we have, and it's a different depth of Jade Cargill we have not seen on TV.
We know she has a daughter, John. Like they showed her in the crowd. So,
well, yeah. It's like on Tuesday night. Like, would it have killed NXT to show Rick Steiner getting in there with his son? It's like, yes,
I didn't even know he was there.
His dad was in the crowd, and they put it up on YouTube of him getting into the ring, hugging his son, and then barking to the crowd. Like, it was a cool moment. It's like we do all this dancing around dog face gremlin references. It's like everyone's in on the stupid joke. That
he's just a big fan.
Yeah, but it's like, man, this 30 seconds, this could have ended the show. It was a cool, real moment. And for whatever reason, it was like, no, we can't show this on TV. And I thought the same with the Jade Cargill thing with her daughter. It's like, okay, this isn't like exactly how we present Jade Cargill, but so what? It's like, it's a cool moment that registers with your audience that is going to, I think, make more fans of Jade Cargill as a result that, look, this is this mother who just won a title. This was a really important moment.
I do wonder if in AEW's case, it's more just a factor of the lack of time that they seem to devote to just moments between the matches because they have so much to get to, so much that they cram into the show. And it continues to be an issue. Does it come at the expense of having fewer featured spots on the show? And is that a worthwhile trade-off? That I'm not really sure. But, it is an imperfection of like the current system and the current model that they have.
Let's go to you.
Is it Bryan up next?
Yes.
Okay, we got a Bryan from New Jersey who says, that looked terrible for Fenix. I hope he has a smooth road to recovery. I'm really tempered to the feel-good ending of a fun main event. Yes, it did. I love Page versus Danielson. These two have developed a really good chemistry. And this one put Page over really strong. Best thing on the show. The TBS title match showed the big gap in talent between both women, but I'm glad Ruby isn't getting lost in the shuffle. More good stuff from Punk and MJF. Big stage for 2.0.
Okay, Muggin writes, as the adage goes in another combat sport, never leave it in the hands of the judges. Paige Danielson put on yet another barn burner title match. I haven't seen this much blood in a Danielson match since the one with Nigel McGuinness. The MJF Punk feud weaved in Wardlow expertly, and I bet his breaking point is coming sooner instead of later. Jade and Ruby was what it needed to be. Jade still got a long way to go as a complete performer, but she's a great choice to be TBS champion. And seeing Phoenix's arm injury does overshadow the main event. Get well soon, Phoenix. That said, it was a very good match with Jurassic Express coming out on top.
And finally, we got a Ben from Vancouver who says the show started off about as good as you could hope for. And I enjoyed the MJF Punk interaction, but the rest of the show wasn't great. I think tonight proved that Jade isn't ready. That match wasn't good. She cannot sell and is just too slow. I also think Ruby proved she is good, not great. She couldn't carry Jade to a decent match, something Thunder Rosa did. The Jericho segment was also extremely lame and unnecessary. The only thing I wanted to see was him and Kingston going to war verbally, and we didn't get that. The main event was a mess and way too sloppy. I think both teams were off tonight, and there was too much silly stuff. Why did the lights go out? I hope Phoenix is okay, and it's time to move the Luchas to singles. Pillman is another guy who shouldn't be on Dynamite in singles matches. He just hasn't improved much. Another guy who can't seem to keep up.
Oh, there's the optimism. Well, thank you, everybody, for your feedback. And that is going to wrap up the show because I think my voice is about to give out. So thank you to everybody for tuning in. We are back on Thursday. We will be live 1 Eastern, youtube.com/postwrestling. We're still on that road to 10K.
Yes, we are. We're going to get there, John. I have faith. So if you're going to pay attention to us, if you're going to watch tomorrow, join the chat at 1 o'clock. And even if you don't, watch afterwards. Give us a subscribe. Like it. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Tweet Talk. Follow us on, everything. Like, just give us a social value. Because we're desperate.
Up that currency for us. Okay, we're going to go. Have a wonderful night, and we'll speak with you tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Signed, The Professionals.